All right, so today I'm going to talk about participatory action research, also known as PAR or PAR, as I'll be referring to it more often than not, and college student fan behavior. So college student fan behavior is something I've been studying in this semester, basically this entire semester. It's been something I've been researching and trying to figure out basically why college students might exemplify certain behaviors, um, whatever they may be at their institution sporting events specifically. Um, and then participatory action research is the method that I'm going to be talking about today, basically talking about what this is as a research method, what it means, what it looks like, how it's used in other cases, and then also kind of applying that to how I could use that with my situation in particular here. So as an overview, participatory action research, PAR, uh, kind of involves two major components of actually other research, other forms of research, other methods, which is action research and then participative research. So on the action side, that research seeks to gain contextual understanding that basically can push their narrative, push the research forward. So what that means is they go and examine a scenario, a situation, whatever it is they're wanting to observe. They come up with they go through the full research process of kind of indulging themselves in that community, in that situation, learning about it, kind of finding what they see, and maybe coming up with some theories as to what can change or improve or what causes, depending on whatever it is that they're looking at. Um, they'll go and do that, and then they take a step away from it, and then use what they found there to kind of write and explicate on this scenario and push whatever topic it is they're researching forward. So they're going in, and it's less about the people they're dealing with specifically and more about the overall, how do we answer this question, maybe come up with some theories to fix this, and then also open up the conversation for further research, or if they had any research limitations, ways to kind of improve the research essentially. Whereas on the participative side, that also seeks to gain that contextual understanding. Same sort of scenario, same way of going about it, sort of, except they really involve themselves and connect themselves with the participants in this research. They kind of almost ingratiate themselves and link themselves, and then link the participants to their research, so they can develop usable theories, and they can still write about it and push the narrative forward on the academic, on the research side. But then they can also use these theories right there. They can apply it and just kind of see what happens from that point, um, and use that in the real world. So whereas action is more about the discussion, behind the scenes sort of, and participative is more about getting in there and actually going for what you kind of come up with and seeing maybe how that responds. And participatory action research is a mix of those. And then to kind of continue explaining kind of that, like I said, it's a combination, where you can use your findings for applicable action, but also, furthering that research. And this little graphic right here kind of talks not necessarily about PAR, but more about like what each component of PAR kind of means, kind of involves. So the participatory is, collaboration, that empowerment of the participants. They have the answers, they can look at the research, they can start linking and, at least further learn about this topic, even if they don't, become experts, or even if they're not going through, your research in particular, they can kind of talk about what's going on there or know what's going on there. The action side is, making that change and pushing that conversation forward. And then the research is talking, about the new knowledge. It's the research side of it. It's the going through the well thought out and constructed process of researching. It's not just, going in there willy-nilly and, asking people about things and then saying, well, I think we should do this. There's a process of thought, of before research, research beforehand, um, of experimentation, of hypotheses and different theories and frameworks and paradigms and that sort of thing in that constructed process. So I kind of mentioned frameworks a little bit. PR has been used to create a lot of theories and frameworks and narratives, just based on how dynamic it can be. So one example that stood out to me as I was researching this method in particular was a study in South Africa where they developed what they called community power building frameworks, which essentially is, basically strengthening what kind of resources and opportunities that communities have in South Africa, and specifically on the local level. So, like, I think, about, like, maybe a church meeting group or a youth sports group, or, like a book club, any, or, maybe more local health resources, local parks, libraries, those sorts of things. There's a couple of ways that kind of went with it. Um, but their overall thing was talking about how to strengthen, how to develop, um, a stronger bond between the community and its citizens, and provide more for the people. So they went in and, researched and kind of talked to people about and learned about and kind of lived in and found what people wanted, what people liked and didn't like, how people were in general, what kind of the culture of it. So they didn't just observe from the outside, they immersed themselves there in that, then took a step back and pushed their narrative forward, and, opened up this topic of community building, this power building, but also, um, went in with some certain, it's an interesting read, some certain, um, ideas they had as to implement, whether that was some different forms of regulation, maybe some education, just awareness about certain things that people might not be thinking about or might not have access to, whatever the case may have been in that scenario. They applied that, and then they took that research back with them and went forward with it. So that was kind of a great example of how they used both the action and the participation side of it, and combine that to make it the PAR specifically. So when you're going into research using this method, you need to make a couple of assumptions, which is kind of what I hinted at a little bit when I was talking about the South Africa situation. You need to first think about if people are knowledgeable and if they can really talk about whatever situation you're researching. So you might have people that live in a scenario or work in an environment or whatever it is you're researching, but maybe they're not able to really explicate at length what's going on, deeply. And that's not like an insult to their intelligence. It's just, um, maybe wherever they're at in the situation, even if they're in it, that might not be their priority to think about. But you need to assume that at least somewhere you're going to have some people that are able to do that. You need people to be vested, in helping the research. Maybe there's people that are in these situations and they even can talk, at length about what's going on or whatever you're looking at. But they don't think your research is going to help, or they don't want to participate for various different reasons, all sorts of reasons. But you need to kind of assume that there will be people there that will, and then also this idea that with you being there and research being conducted, people will still act natural. It won't kind of shift things a little bit. You know how it is when someone's there kind of observing, or even if they're kind of ingratiating, sometimes there can be some subconscious biases, or differences that you may go forward with just because of that dynamic there. But you need to kind of assume that that won't be there with these people. You need to assume that they'll be able to kind of go forward with that. And I don't mean that as in like this is a problem. I just mean that these are things that you need to kind of set yourself up in when you're picking a situation. If I can go into this situation and have this thing. So as I kind of hinted at with the assumptions, there's some weak points. Um, Sometimes your most critical, participants or potential participants don't want to take part for various reasons. People that may be able to give you the best or most heartfelt information, or might be able to work with you the greatest. They just don't want to be a part of it. And then at that point, you're kind of on the limited scope of what you can get out of that participation side of the method. The participation can also impact individuals, based on maybe what you come up with when you're applying these real world things, or even just talking about someone's real life uh, in a dissertation or a paper, or an article. It could affect someone on a personal level, mentally or emotionally. So there's kind of that moral, ethical question of how to go about that in the proper way. And like I said, biases can be hard to remove, both on the researcher and on the people participating. But then you could argue maybe that the biases from the participants at least are there for a reason. So that can be a good thing. So that's kind of just an interesting thing, and it can all be complicated to navigate just because there's so many moving parts, but that you have to kind of put together, to make it work. But if you can make it work, then it's a great thing because it takes so many layers and dynamics and it really combines a lot of different things, which is what makes it such a complicated but effective thing, in my opinion, just from my limited research on it. You can get physical examples. You can give participants the power, like I said, to do what they need to do. And you can give them the tools, but then also the knowledge, kind of reflexively right there, so they can learn more about it. And it's just you can make real change in the world. And there's this best of both worlds idea where you can do the research side and the real world application side. So for my particular study, my question was, why do college students exemplify certain behaviors at their institution sporting events? I think this would be a great way to talk about or define this because I can get participation from university officials, people that work there on the business side, on the professional side, on the brand side, on the fans, which is, the students, the big part of it. They're kind of the central question of it. And then even the players who may want to play at home or away in certain environments. Um, it can push this research further and actually give athletic departments practices to go forward with, which in a time where college athletics is kind of ever changing and people aren't sure where it's going, I think it's good to find some stability there. And then these are the sources that I had, and these are some great sources talking about all the things that I showed throughout. And I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you enjoyed. So thank you.